Hey everyone, nice to see you all here. I'm Nihal. I'll be one of your hosts today. I'll do proper intros. So, as we're letting people trickle in, it would be great to hear from people, where you're from, and someone from our team will respond to you. We'll respond to you as well. Just to give you a bit of info on who's here with us today, we have myself and Ben who'll be doing the webinar. And just off screen, we have Daniel, who's part of my team, as well as a couple of folks from some of our partners like Cloudflare sitting off screen. But we're all very excited to be here and talk to you. Toronto, well, good for you.
PI. I love PI, especially in the summer. Montreal.
So.
We got to run the gamut.
Gotta do it. Yeah.
Okay, the East Coast is covered.
Awesome, welcome. Nice to see you, Regan. Cheryl. It's amazing to live. I bet it is.
Waterloo. I went to Laurier.
Oh, nice. Okay, you're close. Toronto, Waterloo. Awesome. Yeah, so we'll just give folks maybe 1 or 2 more minutes before we kick things off. So Hub on King and Waterloo is the best. I'll pretend like I know where that is.
I know where that is. King Street's funny because there is an intersection of King, and King.
King and King?
Yeah, unlike regular cities that were built in grids, Waterloo was built in concentric circles.
I mean, kind of interesting, I guess. They were trying to build a moat, and then they stopped, maybe.
I don't know.
Awesome.
St. Paul, Minnesota? Carmen?
St. Paul, Ontario. No.
St. Paul, Ontario. It could be Ontario.
Is there a St. Paul, Ontario?
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised. There's
in Quebec. Okay.
Oh, St. Paul, Quebec. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah, our apologies. Okay, awesome. We'll get things kicked off in 1 minute. Let me just set everything up. All right. Once again, hi everyone. Thanks so much for making out to this webinar today. I'm Nihal, and I'll be your host for this webinar. And we're here today with our friend here, Ben, to talk about email security in 2026, how to protect your brand and stay in control. So, like I mentioned, I'm from Cyberimpact, and Ben is the founder of ZeroArc, and he was kind enough to give us some of his time today. I will let Ben do a quick intro on himself, and I'll do mine right after.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's great to well, I was going to say see all of you. It's nice to be here. So yeah, like Nihal said, I'm the founder of ZeroArc. I'm also the founder at FP Digital, and for 14 years we've been, as it says, sort of building and managing web facing applications and sites for brands. And over the last few years have started. We're getting pulled into cybersecurity because it's what we know how to build and protect web assets, and very fortunate to have partnered with Cloudflare and Huntress, and now we founded ZeroArc. So, but we come at it from the position of we know that IT and marketing, IT and product, IT and sales sometimes can have that odds, and much like the movie Office Space, we take the specs and talk to IT so the customer, or in this case, brand doesn't have to. But we are, we sit at that intersection. We have for almost 15 years now, and we're excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You. Does anyone want to see pictures of your kids?
That's the after. That's the after.
Awesome. And like I said, I'm Nihal. I work here at Cyberimpact, and I lead our growth and marketing. So a lot of my work is figuring out the right kind of content to put in front of our audience to help them with their email and retention strategy. Something that we do really believe internally as well is that inbox deliverability ultimately ends up being a cross-department responsibility. Of course, marketing, sales often own that frontline comms, but your infrastructure does also play a pretty critical role in that. And something that Ben and I have in common is we can both be easily befriended with a good cup of coffee. So if I don't take bribes, but if you're feeling generous, I'll take it. Awesome. So our plan for today, what we're hoping you'll leave with is an understanding of the attack vectors you own. So these are the email threats that marketers control, but you don't usually hear about in security briefings. Defense framework for how you can think about mapping your marketing stack against your security goals. Live posture check. So how can you actually have a repeatable framework for checking your DMARC and domain health, as well as 2 free assessments that will and there's a little bit about Cyberimpact and what we're doing on the security front as well. So the primary reason, when we were trying to figure out what the topic of today's webinar should be, and the reason we reached out to Ben and decided to do this webinar together is we think this is a very timely topic for organizations of all kinds, especially with the rise of AI. There's good uses of it, and of course there's malicious uses of it. And one of the major things coming on right now is that you have AI-generated phishing at scale, which is something that's only going to get more and more prevalent as these systems get smarter. There are a lot of lookalike domains, and there's this almost whole industry around having domains that cheaply imitate your brand. And this is something that I find a lot of marketers, myself included, don't really think about, right, when it comes to brand reputation and how you protect yourself from attacks like this. And if you, for example, are using a marketing SaaS or work at a marketing SaaS company, this is something that you should definitely be aware of, because they're a pretty big primary attack surface for a lot of bad actors. So before we get things going, we'll have a poll populate in the chat, and we'll give you 20, 30 seconds to answer it. But we're curious where you sit on email security today. So, we have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC set up and feel confident. We've done the basics, but aren't sure we're fully protected. C, email security is mostly handled by IT. I'm just here to learn. And D, honestly, I'm not sure where we stand, and that's the reason you're here today. So,
done the basics. It's good.
Okay. I'm waiting. Okay, there. I was going to be like, I hope someone has their SPF DKI DMARC set.
Well, I mean, basics could be part of that.
No, that's true. The basics.
Yeah.
I guess there's some overlap there. Okay, awesome. So we'll leave the poll open, so no rush to answer it, and we can always revisit it and look at the split. But for the most part, it looks like about 50% of the folks here have done basics. The second bucket kind of looks like IT bears the brunt of responsibility here, and just unclear on where you stand. And that's perfect for some of the topics we're going to discuss today. So, I think when it comes to, So when it comes to thinking about why email security is important, there's a lot of things that marketers aren't really thinking about or talking about. And Ben is going to walk us through a couple of, examples of where marketing has been affected by something like a phishing attack, and then dive deeper into some of the technical elements that go into building your security practice.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Nahal. First, I just want to say the chat is open. If you have questions as we go, we're very fortunate to have Daniel Consolo from my team, who's our head of security platform, and Nicole from Cloudflare. So we actually have a Cloudflare solutions engineer sitting in chat as well, who can answer questions about email security and email security setup and whatnot. So fire away. Having their time is something valuable. All right. So, I look at these posts on LinkedIn that often start with, here's what nobody's telling you. And oftentimes, it's clickbait, but the reality is that what we're about to talk about, really nobody wants to talk about, because nobody wants to talk about it. And, start with a story. A few years ago, 13,000 not-for-profits and charities had to warn their donors and their clients and their stakeholders that your data may be exposed. May be exposed. They weren't even sure. The kicker is, as it says, none of them are actually breached, right? They had a third-party vendor, and this is a public, this is very public, but so BlackBaud, that handles donation software and fundraising software for, I think it's something like 60 or 70,000 North American organizations, had a breach. BlackBaud ended up paying a $250,000-ish ransom in Bitcoin, and then had to turn around and write $60 million worth of checks. Now that's terrible for BlackBaud, but Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross, think of your favorite charity, probably uses BlackBaud. Your local, I know the Colon Cancer Canada, for example, uses BlackBaud. These organizations were not at fault, so to speak, but all of them had to reach out to their stakeholders and their donors and their email lists and say, hey, your data may be at risk. And their email deliverability, if we want to talk about real impact, suffered as a result. But here's the real kicker. SPF, DKIM, and DMARC were turned on for almost all of these organizations. So when you answer in the poll, hey, we have we've done the basics, or SPIF and DKIM and DMARC, and we're going to talk about that a little later, turned on, we've got to realize that those are great and they're good starting points, and they verify they certainly are good verification points, but they do nothing to actually protect your brand or your business beyond validating that the sender is who the sender is trying to be. And that's it. Another story, Trezor, as some of you may know, they make crypto wallets. They're also a security company. Had a flawless front door. Flawless as far as anyone could see. 2FA turned on everywhere. An SOC, a security operations center that was spun up, that was stood up and knew what they were doing. Phishing attack went out. Somebody clicked something they shouldn't. The email that got through passed every check by their security system, and they ended up being breached. And an email went out to their clients asking them to submit things like their crypto wallet IDs, and some did. Not necessarily Trezor's fault, but their brand, which lives and dies by security, was, we're talking about it still today. The fact that people are trying to impersonate your brand, your product, your salespeople, your senior people is nothing new. They've been doing that since dial-up, right? That's just been, there are just bad people in the world, and whenever there's money and opportunity, that's what happens. Here's the difference. Here's what's changed. 9 months ago, so the old days, you had up to 8 minutes. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in a world where you have really good security operations and somebody watching and good observability, which doesn't sound like everyone on this call has, 8 minutes is enough time. 8 minutes is enough time for somebody in your security center to open their laptop, fix the problem, and go back to sleep. Today, you have 10 seconds. So an alert that goes to a human is simply a VIP ticket to the front row of your own breach. That's it. That's what an alert is. Speed, AI, right? That's what's changed. We have to be aware of it. We have to, and nobody really talks about it. We talk about the good sides of speed. We got to talk about what the risks are that come with the speed. Okay, so let's pause here. That was a lot. I'm gonna make you a quick promise. Some of this stuff is scary for some of the people. Some of you are going to say, no, you know this, that's fine. But for those of you that this is going to cause a little bit of worry, because we're going to talk about some things. I promise you that nothing, when we bring up, everything I bring up today will be followed by a way to fix it, stop the gap, or start correcting the issue. We're going to give that to you. Okay, so I'm not simply here to tell you about fear, and be afraid, and oh my goodness, you need to hire us right away, although maybe you should, but anyway. But we're going to give you some real things to walk away with that you can do starting tomorrow. Because that's our goal, because a rising tide really lifts all boats. And if you're using Cyberimpact, you're on. It's a great start, but you're going to see how they can only do so much to protect you. It becomes your responsibility very quickly. So just quickly, ZeroArk, who are we? So we're the team watching these doors. We're going to talk about 6 doors, and we understand. We come from the agency world. We didn't start as a security operations team, as a cybersecurity team. We started as a web operations, web management team, and saw and experienced the VP of marketing that has 800 domains in GoDaddy, that because IT doesn't want to deal with them, and the intern that has the keys to the DNS because it's faster that way, or the director that doesn't know about all of the third-party apps that are being run with their data. So we've seen it. We've seen a lot of it. I don't want to say we've seen it all. We've seen a lot, and so that's who we are. I got to say it's a little odd now with not getting feedback from people. I can't see faces. All right. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about, we call them 6 doors, 6 entryways into your organization, 6 ways attackers can wear your name. And then we're going to talk about the 3 rings of security. This is how we look at things. And then we're going to do a live demo for you on some things you can set up and do and why they're awesome. All right. Some of these things you're going to know. Some of these things are going to be new. We're going to go over all of them. So first of all, 6 ways attackers can wear your name. First is simply the blast radius around your vendors. You have third-party vendors. We have third-party vendors. Cyberimpact hopefully is one of them. A breached vendor who is authorized as you, right? That's number 1. 2, lookalike domains. We'll talk a little bit about lookalike domains. We've all seen that. And BEC. BEC is business email compromise. Keep that in your head for a moment. We'll talk about that. Form abuse and ad fraud. Landing page scripts, especially these days with AI generated everything. You didn't write the code, and you're either trusting your internal team to know how to scan for security flaws, or you're trusting a vendor. Shadow AI, which is AI being used within your organization, or your data going into AI without observability. And SaaS account takeover. So for those of you guilty of sharing passwords amongst your team, please don't. But basically, there's nothing we can do about SaaS account takeover if you don't have hygiene around your logins and passwords. So those are the 6 things we're going to talk about. Let's get going. All right. So vendor email blast radius. I mean, it's a fancy way of saying you have authorized a certain number of organizations to send emails on your behalf to act as you. One of them might be Cyberimpact. Another might be Apollo or Salesforce, right? All of these organizations that send emails on your behalf, those emails will clear SPF, they will clear DKIM, and they will clear DMARC, simply because you've authorized them. Having a list of all these organizations is really where you need to start. And I promise we're going to go deeper into defense, but I want everyone, as we're going, think about all of the organizations that have access to send on your behalf, and all of the people that have access to send on your behalf. It's not just the organizations, right? It's it's your contractors, it's your interns, it's people outside your department, right? So just keep that in mind. Lookalike domains, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, right? I mean, and some that's getting really scary, how easy that is. And BEC, business email compromise, is a fancy way of saying that those in your organization, directors, VPs, C-suite, that have access to sensitive things deserve an extra layer of protection and require an extra layer of protection around their identities and around their email. Why? Because an email from a CFO it appears to be from a CFO at the wrong moment, asking somebody junior who hasn't gone through any kind of training to identify a bad email to say purchase a gift card or send over credentials, right? And for those of you that haven't heard of this, some have. There's a very famous story Google and Facebook fell for a BEC level compromise where invoices were sent to each of those organizations that appeared to come from their other organizations and like from each other and from other organizations. And they used lookalike domains, and they used senior people's names to get accounts payable rather, to pay them $120 million. The figure is between 110 and 121 million was lost in this grift. I would have stopped at 100 million. I think this guy just got greedy. But no, the reality is that they didn't even have that turned on. Like they didn't have this turned on. They weren't watching, and now we know. Sorry, apologies. I'm still learning how to use the system. All right, form abuse and ad fraud. So we all have sign-up forms. We all have pixels and ads set up. The number one method of form abuse is list poisoning. So somebody signing, or a bad actor setting an agent to sign up with hundreds of bad emails or compromised emails, with the goal of either diminishing your ability to deliver emails. Because if you start sending emails to known bad blacklisted domains, if you're just blasting them out, you're going to get flagged for that. And it's not your emails delivery sender's problem or fault. It's yours for not checking your list. But in a worst case scenario, it's a method of social engineering and compromise where somebody gets a salesperson on a call and gets them to reveal things. And it's just the beginning of a cycle, right? So somebody getting access, having a non-secure form, having bad CAPTCHA. I recently was working with an organization where the marketing team admitted to turning CAPTCHA off on a contest because it was causing people not to sign up because the Google CAPTCHA was too cumbersome. And so instead of finding a solution, for example, Cloudflare's really what I think is really most user-friendly CAPTCHA system out there. They simply turned it off, and the result were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bad signups, which, if nothing else, simply ate up bandwidth and gave bad data. And we all know attribution is hard enough, right? Mm-hmm. So form abuse and fraud, landing page supply chain. I don't know if some of you might have heard the words.
Like just
right?
on the note of the list, right? I think that's a really interesting angle that I never really considered in the past, where as someone that is a marketer, you're often trying to remove friction along the way, right? Because of course, from a end user experience perspective, it's better if we don't have CAPTCHA in there. But unfortunately, with the nature of how the internet is these days, with the scale at which these attacks can happen, that type of friction is just something I suppose we'll have to learn how to bake into our user journey and just educate our customers, our audience, on why this is important. Right?
And I think people are pretty okay with CAPTCHA these days, as long as it's not cumbersome. Obviously Cloudflare is a partner, and most of us have experienced that automated orange cloud. It just says checking if you're human, and it goes. And it's awesome, and I won't geek out on how that works, but it's really great. But it's necessary, and the beauty of a system like that, and if you can use theirs or a different one if you want, is you can now even choose the kind of box you want to let through. I mean, it's not like you need to put down the hammer, and you shouldn't, but you can get really surgical. And thank you for bringing back. The one other thing I'll mention is we all have ad budgets. We're all responsible for those ad budgets. All budgets are limited. And the last thing you want is that your budgets to be drained by bad actors simply to drain them, right? So we're going to we'll get into defense, but something I like to tell people, I'll tell them often and loudly, is what gets observed gets secured, right? What gets measured gets improved. And it used to be that you would have to have 3 or 4 or 8 different vendors, software contractors, or teams like mine, all working together to make sure all this was covered. And these days you really can do it with a couple. And so that's the beauty of using like a Cyberimpact plus, ZeroArk or Cloudflare and Huntress. Some of you may have heard the words landing page or supply chain attack floating around if you're paying attention to AI news. And if you haven't, don't worry about it. But basically, the first 3 doors that we just talked about come from the outside. This one, the call is coming from inside the house. Okay. So we are all guilty, and I throw myself in this. In the old days, I'll put myself in this bucket too, of saying, just put the Google Pixel in. I just want it needs to be done. The client needs it done. The VP needs it done. And the person says, well, how? You say, well, download the WordPress plugin. Now, which WordPress plugin, right? Or which pixel or which code? Where is it exposed? Where does it end up on your page? And if you have a compromised WordPress plugin, or you have, or you've had someone put a script, or rather a tag or a pixel in a place that's easily scraped and duplicated, you can be attacked at that level. Users can be improperly redirected. So if, to the point we've seen where if your tag or pixel is exposed at a certain, or the way that it's implemented is bad, somebody can actually send your users based on that pixel to another page on that looks like yours and just is simply a bad actor. So this one, you've got, this is all about making sure that you're not just willy-nilly installing things and not paying attention. Shadow AI, by the way, anyone that wants to talk about AI, I'm happy to geek out about this all day, and Shadow AI, and we can set up a separate call. But in short, in the early 2000s, it was shadow IT. It was my company, speaking of Waterloo, my company only wants me to use a BlackBerry. I want the latest iPhone. I'm just going to bring the iPhone and bring it onto my network. That wasn't tracked. That was shadow IT. And then we had shadow SaaS. I want to use Cyberimpact. My company forces me to use this far, inferior system, and I'm just going to sign up for Cyberimpact using my own credit card or petty cash or whatever. And nobody's tracking that, and nobody knows that I'm using Cyberimpact, and it's outside our security posture. Today, we largely have those things under control, and now it's AI. It's shadow AI. I've heard the number of times I've heard that my organization only lets us use Copilot or Gemini, better. But what happens is the answer is not a simple ban hammer to cut off all other AIs, because people are going to find a way around them. We all have phones. We all have ChatGPT or Claude on our phones too. They all have cameras. So I bring this back around to email is use AI with your email. Absolutely. Workflows, writing the first drafts, all those wonderful things. But you have to know and have an eye on what data is going in and what data is coming out, and intent detection. It's not that these things are new. It's just never been this fast and this big an attack surface. And then the final one is marketing SaaS account takeover. So this one's a little bit, when I talk about SaaS account takeover, this is on us. I mean, this is on you. This is on us. The idea that your credentials were compromised is a real threat, and it's something to keep an eye out. It's also, I think, the easiest one to defend against, and we'll talk about, because it's a human level thing, and that's actually, I think, the one that most of us understand. I see some questions coming in under chat. If anyone, to my team, if you guys want me to, if I need to stop anywhere, I'm not reading the chat, so if anyone wants me to stop and go back or anything, let me know. So those are the 6 attack vectors. Everyone's hopefully sufficiently like, okay, great. Now how do we fix them all? Well, we use our concept is a three rings of defense. On the outer ring, you've got your brand and your inbox. Then you've got account and human, and you've got apps and AI. And sitting in the middle is the marketing team or the brand team or the sales team that's sending out those emails through those rings. Before we talk about how it works, I want to talk about when we're going to talk about the rings and the security and what we do. We're going to talk about we're going to name some partners. So I want to talk about them very quickly, who they are and what they do. So meet what we call your defensive line, right? So at the very core, you've got Cyberimpact, just above the marketing team. They've got great security. They're doing all the right things to be a fantastic vendor, be certified, have all the certifications, and make sure that they're offering you the ability to secure yourself. So they're a great partner as far as sending goes. Huntress offers a number of services. One of them is like a 24/7 human-led but AI-enabled detection and response system. It integrates with Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. But more importantly, Huntress does phishing training for marketers. And we talk about the training. And we actually use it. We use it internally. If Daniel Consola was live on screen, he would point out that I almost got caught once already this year. So, and then we have Cloudflare. And Cloudflare is, I'm sure some of you have heard of Cloudflare as just, it's a DNS. Cloudflare is more than that. And Cloudflare operates at the edge. So you can bring whatever you want and put it in the middle. Cloudflare operates out here, and they've got their services scale up and down depending on what you need. But for our purposes, DMARC, inbox filtering, domain monitoring, identity, aware access control, shadow AI control, all of that. So you'll see Cloudflare sprinkled. And then ZeroArk, right? And us or a partner like us is important. We're your managed services partner. A lot of these things that we're going to talk about today, you can do on your own. You can set them up on your own. But security is not a do it once and forget it thing. It's an ongoing managed thing. So if you don't have the team internally to ongoing set up, observe, react quickly when things change, which I feel like they're changing every morning. I'm opening up to a new article. A team like ours or something similar is key to keep everything managed. I just saw a question get posted. Concerned about the affordability. Maria, that's a great question. We'll talk about this near the end in Q&A if you can stick around. One of the reasons I love what we're doing is because it's targeted directly at that. We are not trying to be Arctic Wolf or McKinsey or IBM. We grew up building for brands that are on this medium-sized businesses or have smaller teams with big ambitions. And the beauty of working with Cloudflare and Huntress now is it used to be this was the realm of enterprise, and now it's not only is it everyone's responsibility because the surface has gotten bigger, but now we really feel like everyone can afford it. And and the salesman would say, can you afford not to? But we'll get to that. Thank you for the question. Okay, so ring one. So it's just going back to where we were. So we've got brand and inbox first, and then we've got account and human and apps and AI. So your brand and your inbox. A few quick wins that you can turn on that are going to solve the doors that are attacked by those bad actors. One, enforcing DMARC. If you don't know what DMARC is, I'm not going to get into it now. But Google it. It's basically, first of all, it's required by Google and Microsoft and all the big email, Apple, et cetera, to actually have your emails be delivered. So I'm sure some of you have even seen that. And that's a great thing. Most of the records we see, the DMARC records, have P = none turned on, or rather enabled. So basically what that's saying is, send me a report whenever a bad thing happens, but don't do anything. That would be like having a camera over your front door, but not locking your door. Okay? Set it to reject. Now, is this the be all and end all, and are there reasons not to set it to reject and have soft? Yes, there are. But if you do nothing else, if you don't know what those reasons are, or you simply want to be secure from day one, set it to reject. And of course, you can set that up with Cloudflare or whomever. 2, filtering your inbox. Anyone that has more than one that's got a couple of team members, you don't look at their email every day. You don't know. You might have a good security posture. You don't know what's going on. AI, phishing, and impersonation defense is a must-have these days. So human-level defense doesn't work anymore, not because we're not smart, but because the speed is too great. Having AI, phishing, and impersonation defense on your Microsoft 365 account or your Google account is imperative. We take the Swiss cheese approach, where the whole, if you think about a layers of Swiss cheese, the holes should just never line up. So there are holes in certain layers. It should be caught by the next layer. If you're only using Google or you're only using M365 and you're relying on them for your email security, you're woefully underserviced. And watch your domains. So keeping an eye on your domains, catching lookalikes before your customers do. Oh, thank you. Sorry. I think I've received, and I'm sure some of you have received emails that say, "Hey, we've noticed an increase in phishing attempts or attacks." These organizations that send those emails should be praised, and it's because they're keeping an eye. they're watching things. We're going to show you an example of how that works a little later on. And I want to acknowledge, I understand that the filter your inbox box, that's probably a conversation with IT. I get it, but it's important. And we'll show you how we filter our inbox here at ZeroArc and why it's important for marketing to keep an eye on that. It didn't used to be. It is now. The second level, account and human. I don't want to say this is my favorite one, but this is the one that I get the most excited about because honestly, it's first of all, it's human to human, which I love, and it's really the simplest one to understand. First and foremost, identity watch, so identity theft monitoring, social engineering monitoring. That used to be you would do that only personally, right? But now, if a member of my team has their identity stolen, my business is at risk, my brand is at risk, my clients are at risk. So you can now turn on identity watch for your own employees. I'm going to skip number 2 for a second. Locking down access. So making sure things like multi-factor authentication are turned on everywhere. Role-based authentication, like role-based access is set. Not everybody's an admin. If you have a WordPress website and everyone's an admin on your WordPress website, I want you to leave the webinar right now and go fix it. That's like you're giving everyone admin access. And those things should be reviewed every quarter. And by the way, those things are free. And if you're using a vendor that doesn't have multi-factor authentication turned on, stop using that vendor. These are table stakes these days. Getting back to number 2, the training, and on the cost question, believe it or not super expensive. And it doesn't matter how big or small your team is. And it's a 15 to 20 minute investment per person per month. If you use Huntress, the videos are actually kind of fun and funny. And we look forward to doing them. And it's needed. And that's a human thing. By the way, if we had perfectly trained humans, numbers 1 and 3 really wouldn't be necessary to a point. And number 3, so apps and AI, the code side of things. Here's the other one that these ones touch on IT, and so you're going to go, well, Ben, I can't turn these all on my own, and that's true, but it is a good posture to take when deciding which applications we're going to use and not use. One of the things you should be considering is if we're a Google company and we use Google single sign-on for most of the applications we sign into, we should be using Google single sign-on for all of them. And the apps that we pick, all things being equal, we're going to go with the one that uses Google. Now, at a higher level, we would talk about zero trust and we would talk about SSO through, Entra ID and all that stuff, and that's great. But at our level, and I'm including us too, we're a Google company and we use Google single sign-on, and we use apps that use Google. And if they don't use Google, it goes way down on the list. Governing your shadow AI. So some of that is the realm of IT. Absolutely, we need to turn things on your network, etc. Some of that is the realm of setting policies, which you can do on your teams, no problem. Just have a policy and talk about it. And these are the things that are acceptable, and these things don't go in. For example, I don't allow my team to connect any AI agent or bot directly to our Google Drive without going through our what we call switchboard, which is our AI observability layer. And it's amazing because I can see all the prompts that go through. I can see all the data that's moving back and forth. And I can have what's called data loss prevention set up to scan for financial data, customer data, whatever. And it simply gets redacted. It never reaches the AI. A crazy stat is 97% of jailbreaking attempts are successful when it comes to AI, meaning that 97% of the time, you can get the AI to do what you want every time. That stat, if you hear it, you're like, oh my goodness, AI, not secure, terrible. That's not true. What it means is Anthropic's not your bouncer. At best, they're the bartender who says you probably shouldn't drink that. But you're the bouncer. You've got policies, you've got a list. And yes, then we can set things up. Either you use Cloudflare or you talk to your IT team and you observe what's going through your network and you cut it off before it ever reaches the agent. But the first thing you need to do is get rid of get it out of the shadows and talk about it. And the final piece of apps and AI management is cleaning up your authentications, or OAuth. The number of times we've gone to talk to an organization and they have in their WordPress website 5 people that have admin access or and simply don't work there anymore. It boggles me. But I came to realize that you move fast, and perhaps the person that knew all the people is also gone. There has to be a process, an onboarding process, an offboarding process. When you stop using an application, don't just let the subscription expire. So when you switch to Cyberimpact and you leave wherever you are now, you are going to not just end the subscription. You're going to turn off the SPF record that allows the other thing to send on your behalf. For example, if you have an API key and you don't need that API key anymore, kill the key. That's just peace of mind, and it's one less thing to think about. So those are the 3 rings. All right. So what we're going to do now is switch to a demo in real time, and I hope this works. Sharing my screen. Sharing a window. Nope. Now, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to illustrate a few of the concepts we just talked about. So first and foremost, brand protection. So this is the Cloudflare dashboard. There's a lot going on here. Cloudflare offers everything. It's really everything in the kitchen sink. But we're going to talk about 3 specific things today. We're going to show you the brand protection dashboard. We're going to show you email monitoring. And if we have time, we'll show you the AI gateway and shadow AI monitoring. So the number one, in our opinion, threat to your brand is lookalike domains. So for example, let's click on, I don't know, MailChimp. These are, and this is just, I think it only shows in the last week, although there was one from a month ago.
Like your screen stopped sharing.
Oh, one moment. My apologies. Is it back?
Yep.
Excellent. My apologies. Sorry about that. So, MailChimp.agency. If you received an email that came from MailChimp.agency and you were going very fast, right? So you can see these are all MailChimp lookalike domains that have been registered. Now, some of these are legitimate. For example, MailChimp-ID, we know that they set up senders sometimes that are legitimate, but they're using their name. Let's take a look at Microsoft. We've all received emails from Microsoft asking us to click on things. Just in the last, I think if you saw that, said 1,400 in the last month, right? These are all Microsoft lookalike domains. Not all of them, sorry. This one says Microsoft Apple.ph, right? This is where you monitor all that if you've ever wondered what comes up. Even for little companies like ZeroArk, we're famous in our own heads, but we're not quite there yet when it comes to the world stage. And yet, I've started seeing, some of these are legitimate, but I actually saw this morning, Zero Anchor. Oh, it's possible that Daniel actually took care of it already. But there was one that looked was scarily similar. So this is brand management. This is now part of brand management. And if you can go to investigate, and you can see when it loads, where it was registered. You can see the who is registration, and you can check and see, hey, was this us? Was it not? So that's one way. So that's real world brand protection. Set it up and just set up a monitor, and that's it. Email. How am I doing for time now?
Sorry, finding these buttons is a pain. You're good. Like we have 15 minutes left.
Okay. So I'll just do this, and then that's it, and then I'm done. So this is ZeroArk.io's email monitoring. Over the last 30 days, we've received almost 12,000 emails. Wow, I guess we are famous. Of those, 9,000 were marked clean, and 2,800 or so were marked disposition assigned, meaning they didn't quite look right. And of those 2,500 were just bulk, right? So that was just, spam and bulk email, and 200 were actually spam. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at the suspicious emails. I think this is where I found it. And you'll start noticing you've all received emails like this, right? Okay.
Yes.
Actually, sorry, it was under malicious, I think. There it is. Okay. So these are all the malicious emails that have been quarantined. This was a little crazy. Cloudflare Connect 2026. We haven't signed up yet, but we're going to go. We're a Cloudflare partner. Reservation team. All right, no problem. Click on it. Why is this a little crazy? This email, believe it or not, mirrors exactly the email we got from the legitimate organization that on Cloudflare's behalf handles the booking for the hotels for the conference. And I know in my head, it's not going to come from Cloudflare. It's coming from Cloudflare's partner in this business. So I immediately know that I'm immediately okay with it not coming from Cloudflare. What else is crazy? This email passed SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. 100% verified. Had we not had email security turned on via Cloudflare, it may actually have made it through no problem. Here's why it was marked suspicious. Couple of things. One, the registered domain name that it came from was newvisionbooking.com. If you look up newvisionbooking.com, they're a medical booking company in the US. Somebody is using their domain successfully and using SendGrid to send it out. Now, we don't know where the breach is. We don't know how they gained access to that. But somebody's using their brand, and I'm guessing nobody's watching their own brand. No one's watching the emails going out. The other thing that it caught it took me a second to see is that Victoria Hayes is from Capital Prime Hub. Capital Prime Hub is a mortgage broker, and the email came from a medical company. So obviously it's garbage, no problem. And if I would never click the links. By the way, I won't do it now because we don't have time, but one of the other beauties of this system is that you can actually test the links in a sandbox browser. So you can, if you're unsure, you can click open in browser isolation. It will open it in a safe place so you can see where it goes. So that's email security. As a brand, so this is inbound, obviously, but you can set up outbound data loss prevention, which we don't have set up at the moment, which is why there's no data here. And it was one other thing. Anyway. To protect your brand on the other side, you can actually set up monitoring for your brand, for your domain, to see what traffic is coming out as you. And to bring it back, I want you to imagine if you were one of those major charities way back at the beginning, and we talked about that when BlackBaud had the breach, had they been watching, it's not that they would have been able to prevent BlackBaud from having a breach, but they would have been able to stop very quickly by turning off the records that allow BlackBaud to send on their behalf the ability for a breached third party to send emails that look like them, right? So again, what gets observed gets secured. And I'll end with, it's inevitable that people on this call, and I include myself in this, will experience a breach at some point. It's inevitable. It happens. The bad actors are too fast. They're too good. The surface is too wide. Something's going to happen. When that something happens, your customers, your employees, your stakeholders, your senior management are going to say to you, as the owner of the protector of the brand or protector of the product, we understand this thing happened. What did we do to protect us? What did you do to protect us? And my message to you is, have a good answer. Because ignorance is no longer something we can plead. Saying it's IT's fault, as you can see, or it's IT's problem, is no longer something we can do. We, all of us, as marketers, as product managers, as brand ambassadors, have to now stand up in defense and turn and do our best, do what's possible. Can't do everything, but do what's possible, and then have a plan in place for when things actually eventually happen. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks for your time. Nihal, back to you.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks so much for that, Ben. That was very, very engaging and very cool to see the monitoring capabilities in that dashboard as well. So something we'll definitely do on our end as well. Something that I think is really interesting about this question ultimately is, this becomes a question of course, internal. But to your point earlier, right, it's what answers do you have if this were to happen to your customers or to the people on your list as well, right? What are those additional protections that you're putting in place to protect their data? And this is something that we, really push for. As a concept, I think compliance and security has never been a priority for anyone that works on marketing, communications, or on the brand side. But as trust, as a a currency, let's call it that, continues to become more important, especially as people struggle to differentiate, what's good, what's bad. It is kind of a key part of, let's say, what is the stack that you're building from a tech perspective to actually protect your user data as well.
Yep. And the number of third-party products that we all now use that, in my experience, I don't know about your organizations, but in my experience, IT will sometimes say, that's fine, but you're operating outside the house now, right? And here are our policies. Hopefully they have them, and please follow them, but we don't want to know about it. I met a guy in Vancouver at Web Summit who's been in cybersecurity for almost 30 years. And he said to me that his attitude is, if I don't know about it, I don't have to worry about it. And then I was talking about shadow AI, and he looked at me and he went, Ben, now I have to go do something about it. Like, thanks for that. And typical, IT guy, he was kind of joking, but that attitude doesn't work anymore because you just can't, you really could used to be able to do that.
Yep.
But you can't anymore. And marketing and we'll call them non-IT departments now have to start smartening up when it comes to third-party apps.
Absolutely. And, I think speaking specifically on your point around the 3 rings, and in our case specifically, we kind of provide the sending layer that touches specifically on email as a channel. And, the way I guess folks can think about your ESP, regardless if that's us or another product, is it's an authenticated sender. And the reputation of your sending layer also impacts your deliverability at the end of the day, right? So the stuff that they're doing to protect your compliance and your security practices ultimately ends up affecting you down the road. And this is something that we try to prioritize quite a bit here at Cyberimpact to make sure that, at least when it comes to your email, you don't need to worry about it as much. Because, and this may be leaning more on the technical side, but a big part of what we do, and then you can always hop in, add some spice to this, but we essentially apply a bunch of different controls to protect both user data, but also the data that's hosted within our system. And here are a couple of ways that we do this. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of it, but it kind of speaks to some of the points you were talking about earlier, right? So having role-based access controls, multi-factor authentication, continuous monitoring, and anomaly detection, kind of that you can actually act on what you measure. And also making sure that whatever vendor you choose has some type of formal incident management and recovery processes for you. Because if someone were to come to you and be like, hey, do we have any recourse? You kind of need to have that answer, right? And it does fall a little bit onto your partner, your vendor, to provide you with that support if the time ever comes. For anyone that is a Cyberimpact customer or anyone that's just curious about some of the things that we do put in place, you can check out our Trust Center for the full detail on like the control certifications and our data residency commitments. We are really built with Canada and Canadian sovereignty in mind. And, over time, I think this is going to become a pretty critical part of your overall deliverability performance, but also just general brand trust, right? Where are you storing my data? And can I trust that when I hand this data over to you, you're actually taking stewardship of it? So, on the compliance front, this is something that I find feeds into that whole brand trust, but isn't necessarily super technical when you first think about it. But, CASL is something that we do deal with here in Canada. And for the longest time, people saw it as this roadblock, right? Kind of to your point with the CAPTCHA. I'm adding friction for myself and for my audience that doesn't need to be there. But the reality is that while this is one of the strictest anti-spam legislations in the world, it's a good thing, right? Like, yes, you might not be able to blast people without thinking about what you're sending, why you're sending it, and that can feel like it's putting roadblocks in your path. But really, what it's making us do as marketers is really double think how we engage with people that hand over that data to us, and make sure that we, actually show them that with us, your data is safe and you can trust us. And I think brand trust is this kind of underrated layer that we need to start thinking about when it comes to our full brand presence at the end of the day. And where CASL really fits to some of the things that Ben was talking about is, consent is really one half of your trust layer. And then there's the technical elements, which are the authentication, right? So the consent half with CASL, it either requires express or implied consent. And to this end, it's kind of your legal right to send when someone consents, but this doesn't actually protect you from being impersonated. That's where the authentication half comes in, and they're kind of your technical proof of identity, but at the end of the day, it's not a replacement for consent. So when you think about inbox trust as a whole, at the end of the day, you do really want to think about, am I being compliant? But is my technical layer also strong? So I'm ultimately building a really strong trust in the inbox with both the Gmail, Yahoo, everyone, all the inbox providers, but also with your audience on the other side. And when it comes to just top level best practices to protect your deliverability at the end of the day, a few things that we tend to see folks doing. One is if you group your audiences too soon. So when you first add someone to your list, what you're really trying to do is learn about what it is that they want to receive exactly. And what I find a lot of communicators or marketers sometimes do is they'll preemptively, let's say, create automations that they think will be relevant for a particular member of the audience. And they'll just go ahead and create tons of groups. Part of the issue here is, when you don't actually have a purpose behind how you're segmenting, you can actually lose track of who's actually in each of those lists. And, it kind of feeds into this idea of not knowing your audience. And especially with AI having more and more of a role to play in the inboxes, relevance is what keeps you in the inbox. So it's no longer just reading your subject line, seeing if it's spammy, checking for a couple of spammy words in your email. It's actually seeing, once you send an email to me, am I opening it? Am I reading it? Am I clicking into it? Am I engaging with the content you're sending me? And if not, that kind of shows the inbox provider that maybe what you're sending me isn't relevant at the end of the day. To Ben's point, like with security, I think even with engaging with your audience and building that trust, it really isn't a setting. You can't really set and forget it. So automations help you reduce some of the manual work, but you still need to actively monitor and see how your audience is engaging with your content, because you might even be able to spot security concerns along the way, right? Maybe in your unsubscribes, like when people give you a reason for unsubscribing, we've seen this with a couple of clients where people will unsubscribe because they were receiving spam from this domain without the person actually knowing, right? So there is actually some insights in there. And finally, when it comes to like your email design and how you actually appear in the inbox, you really do want to make sure that you're maintaining a constant brand identity across email that matches your actual brand so people can recognize you. So before, we're coming up on time, but second poll for everyone that's still here. Who at your organization owns email security today? So would it be marketing, IT, shared, or is it still unclear, in your current state? Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's fair. For the most part, IT owning it, shared responsibility, or like lack of.
That's actually, believe it or not, I know it's a very small sample size, but that's pretty on par.
Yeah, makes sense.
And in fact, the fact that marketing owns it's like
good.
Well, I mean, it's not a matter of I'm sorry. We see so little of that marketing actually gets to own email. Anyway, there's a whole other webinar we can do on that. But it's interesting. It's mirroring pretty well what we see normally. Yeah, IT and then a shared responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to quickly wrap things up, and I think Ben really went in depth on a lot of things, and you'll of course get the recording and the slides after if you wanted to take a closer look. But if you did want to just do a quick recap, Ben, on the key takeaways that you were able to.
Oh man, I'm exhausted. No. All right. So we talked about the six. We talked about the 6 threats, the 6 ways that people or bad actors can try and wear your hat, wear your brand name, and that some of them come from outside the house, some of them come from inside the house. But the fact that marketing owns most of these doors now, or controls at least a portion of them and has a say in them and is responsible for them. And then we went through we collapsed those 6 into the 3 rings of defense. There is on the outside, you've got your brand and your AI. You've got your brand and your email, and then you've got your human elements, the training, and you have apps and AI. And if there are 2 things that I want to leave you with, just to keep in your mind, one is training and the human element. So for those of you that are 1 or 2 people, do you need formal training? Maybe not. What you just need to have a monthly meeting where you talk about you do talk to each other and you do a little bit of research, or you can sign up for a Huntress. But for large organizations, the human training is incredibly important. And the other thing is getting a hold of Shadow AI. And we don't have a lot of time, but very, very short. We caught a person in a very large enterprise that their security team swore up and down it's not possible. No one is using AI that we don't sanction. And we brought the person to the next meeting with their security team, and he, in a good way. And we said, you need to promote this guy, right? Because he found a way around. And so Shadow AI is happening. It needs to be talked about and enumerated. And so have a list. Just make yourself a list. In fact, both things are human, right? Make yourself a list of all the items that you're using, and get yourself. There you go. I forgot we had this. 3 things you can do tomorrow, right? So list every tool that's authorized as you, and get yourself some training, and everybody needs it.
Absolutely. Cool. So that's more or less it. Before we do leave you, we do have an offer for anyone that is interested. So, Ben and the team over at Cloudflare were kind enough to offer the Cloudflare One posture assessment, as well as the Huntress phishing sim. So for anyone that is interested, you can definitely reach out to us. We'll send all this information in the follow-up emails as well. And you can sign up for that through there. And if you're interested in taking a look at your email specifically, you can book some time with me, and we can sit down, take a look at what you're doing with email right now, and see if we can identify any quick wins or gaps in your existing strategy. But that's everything for us today. Thank you all so much. I know we're over time, so if anyone does need to leave, feel free to leave. But Ben, do you have a couple of extra minutes?
I do, and Maria, I promised you I'd answer your question, and if anyone else has any questions, please fire them in. But I can just answer them if it's okay. I'll just answer Maria.
Absolutely.
So, Maria, it sounds like you're an independent entrepreneur. You hire every once in a while. You hire a contractor. The question was, how can you work with ZeroArk? And the answer is, as much as we would love to have you as a client, I don't think I don't think you need to just yet. Because it's just you and one other, a contractor. My recommendation is set yourself some policies. You research them, set yourself some policies. Claude's an amazing thing when it comes to that. Make sure that they're all cited research, and have some things that you follow. And it might seem silly, but every quarter, just check, make it a habit to check yourself. So as you grow, it will be a habit. It will be built. It will be baked into your organizational structure that every 3 months we look at all the things we signed up for, and all the things we still use, and we clip off the ones that we don't. I remember back when we started 15 years ago, it was myself and my business partner, former business partner. And even then we were, I would sign up for things and he wasn't sure of it, or we'd hire a contractor and they would be using things that we didn't know about. So, back to first principles. That's what I would recommend. The next thing I'd say is get yourself a Cloudflare account. They're free to sign up. If some of the Cloudflare tools that we talked about today seem to be gated behind what would otherwise be enterprise, seats, send me an email. Cloudflare's got a great program. There are situations where they will give free seats. to small businesses. As a partner, we can help facilitate that. And because you're just one person, you probably don't need any kind of external management. I would say once you get up past 5, 6 seats, and you want to make sure that things are set up, and then depending on what your business is responsible for example, we're SOC 2 certified. We could be 2 people. We would require a certain level of security. We're not. We're much larger than that, but there are just some things we require. But if you do other things, you maybe don't need that level. So Rihan and Ben at zeroarc.io, send me an email. If I can't help, we'll point you in the right direction for sure. Rihanna, new to Cyberimpact. My contact list includes client families. This might be a question for you, Nahai, because I think this might have to do with CASL. If you look in the main chat.
Yeah, sorry, just taking a look.
And then Catherine, so Proton email. Proton Mail is encrypted email. It's great, right? And it can obfuscate the sender, and it's anonymous as far as I know. But ultimately, you're still authorized. Gmail is secure, right? I mean, it's absolutely secure. The problem is that when you start authorizing other organizations things to send on your behalf, or you start having employees that also have logins and passwords that you can't monitor, or you start interacting with AI tools, right? So Proton Mail, if it's just you and you're in a box and you're only sending from there, it's secure, right? But what about your brand name and all that? So, and yes, Canadian data protection. If you're in a regulated industry, so we work with a number of regulated businesses where Canadian domicile data is required, or Canadian data protection is required, drop us an email and we can set up a time to chat about that for sure. There are ways to help manage that too.
Yeah. And to your question, Rihanna, maybe this is something we can take offline, just because I'd need to see exactly what it is that you're seeing on your list. So, feel free to shoot me an email after, and I'd be happy to answer that question for you.
Because consent does expire at some point, right?
It does. So it says, it's just maybe my eyes are failing me, but if someone is, implied consent and they're active for the last 2 years, the goal is if they're still active, but they never gave their explicit consent, you do have flows that you can activate to push them towards giving you explicit consent. So that's usually what we recommend, is once someone has entered your list, you want to, as quickly as possible, get them to opt in explicitly, because at the end of the day, that is the best type of consent you can get. The implied consent does technically stay active if they were to let's say they were to redonate, right? Like if they were to give you another donation, that counts as a renewal of a business transaction. So you can still keep them in that implied consent bucket, but you do really want to push them towards that explicit opt-in. So not sure if that exactly answers your question, but that was my understanding of it, at least. Okay, awesome. Guess that might be it for questions. But yeah, thank you, everyone. This was really nice having you all here with us. And once again, if you have any questions, you can shoot. We'll send over a bunch of details over email. And you can always connect with either Ben or myself, or both of us, on LinkedIn. And we'd love to meet you. Of course. Thanks so much, Maria. Thanks, Rana. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.